Kinahan Cartel most notorious hitman, Imre the Butcher Arakas. When we talk about the Kinahan Cartel, we often think of fear, violence, and a ruthless criminal empire that stretches across Europe. But hidden in the shadows of that empire was a man whose name alone struck terror into anyone who crossed paths with him. Imre Arakas, known chillingly as the Butcher. The fact that he was a hitman for hire is only one aspect of his story. It is really complicated. This is a story that is intertwined with the upheaval that occurred in Eastern Europe, the international organized crime scene, and the increasing brutality that was being perpetrated by Ireland's most known drug gang, the Kinahan organization. Born in Estonia during the time of the Soviet Union, Arakas grew up in a nation that was ruled by an iron fist, governed by governmental control and surveillance, and dominated by a dictatorship. As a young man, he pursued a career in wrestling as a professional wrestler, which required him to be physically fit and disciplined. However, as Estonia attained its independence in the early 1990s, and the Soviet Union began to disintegrate, the nation was forced into a state of transition, one that was characterized by economic instability and the emergence of organized crime. Arakas, who had been disillusioned and possibly hardened by years of upheaval, made the decision to focus on the criminal underground rather than any lingering hopes of leading a legitimate life. By the beginning of the 21st century, he had already established a reputation among people in Eastern European circles as someone who did not only complete the task at hand, rather he left behind an enduring message with it. Not only was his nickname, the Butcher, a hyperbole, but it also mirrored the merciless efficiency with which he carried out his work in the world of contract killings. Arakas were able to work in the underground in a stealthy but efficient manner. It was well known that he was a calculating individual, careful in his planning, and remained unflappable even when under intense strain. He had already been working with a number of organized crime syndicates across Europe by the time he was recruited by the Kinahan Cartel. In particular, he had been working with these syndicates in the Baltics, Russia, and Spain. He was a ghost, untraceable, and professional. Someone who could stroll into Ireland, carry out an assassination, and then depart without a trace. The Kinahans considered him to be an excellent asset. There was no way to track him down. At a crucial juncture for the Kinahan organization, his recruitment was just what was needed. In the midst of a gangland battle that was becoming increasingly bloody with the Hutch faction in Ireland, the Kinahan Cartel was desperate to land a blow that would destroy their competitors. This feud had already taken the lives of over a dozen people, several of whom had been executed in public and with great brutality, attracting the attention of authorities from Ireland as well as from other countries. On the other hand, the leadership of the Kinahan was dissatisfied despite the number of fatalities. They had a large number of low-level collaborators who had either failed to carry out the intended hits or had attracted an excessive amount of attention while carrying them out. Evidently, they required the assistance of an outsider, a professional. At a crucial juncture for the Kinahan organization, his recruitment was just what was needed. In the midst of a gangland battle that was becoming increasingly bloody with the Hutch faction in Ireland, the Kinahan Cartel was desperate to land a blow that would destroy their competitors. This feud had already taken the lives of over a dozen people, several of whom had been executed in public and with great brutality, attracting the attention of authorities from Ireland as well as from other countries. On the other hand, the leadership of the Kinahan was dissatisfied despite the number of fatalities. They had a large number of low-level collaborators who had either failed to carry out the intended hits or had attracted an excessive amount of attention while carrying them out. Evidently, they required the assistance of an outsider, a professional. During the month of April in 2017, Arakas made their covert entrance into Ireland. Under the garb of a nature-loving vacationer, he gathered camping equipment, binoculars, fishing rods, and other items associated with the outdoors in order to provide evidence in favor of his cover story. James Mago Gatley, a high-ranking member of the Hutch gang and a known associate of Jerry the Monk Hutch, was the individual he intended to take out. The Kinahans had placed a price on Gately's head that might reach up to 200,000 euros, which is an indication of how significant the hit was to them. Arakas was tasked with carrying out the execution in a timely and methodical manner. However, Arakas failed to take into account the extensive reach and vigilant nature of Irish law enforcement, despite the fact that he had years of expertise and meticulously planned. Prior to his arrival, the Gardaí, notably its Drugs and Organized Crime Bureau and Emergency Response Unit, had already had intelligence regarding his visit. Almost immediately, a surveillance operation was initiated. Upon Arakas's arrival at Dublin Airport, a detective working undercover was able to board the same airport bus that he had previously taken to the Central Business District. During the time that the bus was traveling toward Dublin, that officer discreetly informed his superiors by sending them a text message that he had eyes on him. The subsequent action was a surveillance operation that was meticulously orchestrated. The pursuit of Arakas led him to Moore Street, where he purchased a wig, most likely with the intention of using it as part of his disguise for the murder that was planned. Following that, he made his way to a residence in Blanchardstown, which is located in West Dublin, where he was getting ready to carry out the hit. But before he could make his move, the Gardaí came in to block his path. The property was searched by armed officers, and he was taken into custody. One of the objects that was taken into custody was his phone, which at the time of the seizure was unlocked. This gave the investigators the opportunity to picture a number of texts that may be used against him. This collection of texts indicated communications that had taken place between Arakas and a well-known criminal from Clondalkin, who had been serving as a go-between for Daniel Kinahan himself. Despite the fact that Kinahan did not make direct contact with Arakas, the text provided evidence that he was being the one to make decisions behind the scenes and that Arakas had been provided with specific instructions on how to eliminate Gately. After some time had passed, the associate of Clondalkin, who was a gangster with his own history and local feuds, was taken into custody in connection with the same plot. During the month of December 2018, Imre Arakas entered a guilty plea in the Special Criminal Court about his involvement in a plot to kill Gately in Northern Ireland between the dates of April 3rd and April 4th, 2017. A sentence of 6 years in prison was handed down to him. On the other hand, that was not the end of his legal problems. Late in the year 2021, as his sentence was drawing to a close, the authorities received a request for his extradition from Lithuania. The request accused him of another crime, which had been committed as far back as 2015. It was believed by the Lithuanian authorities that Arakas had been involved in the murder of Demantas Bugavicius, who was the boyfriend of the pop singer Vida Jakutieni. According to the findings of their inquiry, Bugavicius had been murdered as part of a contract killing, and Arakas was implicated as a member of a three-man team that was involved in arranging the assassination and supplying the weapons that were used in the shooting. Despite the fact that Arakas asserted that he was in Spain at the time of the murder, the Lithuanian police concluded that this was not the case and obtained a European arrest warrant. Additionally, Arakas was formally extradited to Lithuania in the month of January 2022. There was a high level of security surrounding his transfer from Portlois prison to Dublin Airport, where he was then handed over to Lithuanian law enforcement. In addition to being charged with murder and conspiracy, the Lithuanian government also accused him of illegally possessing weapons. According to the allegations, he was not present at the location where the shooting took place. Nonetheless, it was suspected that he had played a significant supportive role behind the scenes. The revelation of this additional facet of his illegal operations proved that he was not just a hitman, but also a logistical coordinator, a supplier of weaponry, and a planner simultaneously. In spite of all of this, the police have been hoping for a long time that Arakas will cooperate with inquiries into the Kinahan Cartel investigations. He was wanted to provide testimony against Daniel Kinahan, who is currently considered to be one of the most wanted criminal bosses in the world. Arakas, however, remains steadfast in his refusal to cooperate, as is customary in the underground. Even when he was presented with the opportunity to make a bargain, he remained mute because of his loyalty, or perhaps because he was afraid of being punished. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.